The awful dread that crawls and chokes and blinds and falls and twists and leaves and hides and weaves and burns and hunts and rips and bleeds and dies and changes, you might say. It's hard to say, now that the fears have been pushed back, if I've lost touch with the extinction. My patron was, I think, always emerging. It dwells in potential futures, so there was always some sense of distance. I suppose I got my wish anyway. It's been a few weeks now, and I haven't seen you in any of my dreams. I felt all that anger leave me. Haven't seen your incorporeal undead mate yet either, so far at least. That's not what troubles me right now. People get the wrong idea about my patron. Henrik once expressed confusion about the difference between the extinction and the desolation. Let me put it this way. When one of Percy's beloved tornadoes is barreling towards you, and you don't know if it'll miss your home or flatten everything in one moment of meaningless destruction, that's the lightless flame. Senseless, unthinking loss and pain. But now think for a moment. Every year tornadoes get more frequent, intense and unpredictable. Every year the atmosphere warms more and more, and the old patterns of seasons and weathers we've adapted to over centuries are changing. More freak storms from out of nowhere, wiping towns and cities off the map. And it's all our fault. Every time you get in your car or turn on the light or buy something that was flown to you across continents, you, personally, are contributing to making it worse. The swallowtail might revel in infestation, infection, and rot, but biological weapons, antibiotic-resistant superbugs, and man-made chemical horrors beyond comprehension could sweep all that natural order aside. The difference is the blame. The world is always ending because we, humanity, made it that way. We fear our own destructive nature and the terrible places it will lead us to. My first victim was a climate denialist idiot. When I showed him the world that we will make, I felt some sense of poetic justice there. But people like him never sufficed. The fears all have their own tastes, and the people the terrible change wants most are those who already know and fear it, the ones who really care. Once, there was a young man sitting alone in a cinema. He was watching a documentary about the dying ocean, the hungry plastic nets of humanity tearing through reefs and kelp forests, leaving barren wastes and dead marine life in their wake. He was so moved by this he began to cry. He didn't see me, sitting behind him in the darkness, drawn to his fear like the shark smelling blood in the water. He was so lost in his sense of dread, by the end of the movie, he didn't even notice how empty the cinema foyer was when he left. Only when he stepped outside, to an empty street of ruined buildings beneath a sickly yellow-grey sky, did he realize something was wrong. Once, there was a woman who was camping up in a tree to stop it being cut down. Despite the efforts of police and mining company employees to move her on, she had stayed there a whole month, defiant. She knew she couldn't live with herself if she allowed them to cut down the old-growth forest. Every day volunteers would bring her food and water and supplies and kind words. One day her regular visitors didn't show, but I was there. I waved and smiled as she winched up her care package. That night she was woken by the smell of smoke to find the tree dead and standing alone in an empty, blasted wasteland. Once there was a crowd of protesters outside an arms industry expo, shouting their chants as the expensive people inside marketed their ever more creative ways of committing atrocities. Eventually a fight broke out. Rocks were thrown, riot police called, flares lit, tear gas fired. 3 of the protesters were trying to get away from the violence and confusion. They were new to the anti-war movement, and this was a lot more than they had come prepared for. The smoke got thicker and more confusing. When I came up to them dressed as a volunteer medic and offering safety, they were only too happy to follow me. But when the smoke cleared, they were alone, and all the other people in the crowd were now just shadows on the pavement. Always, it's the ones naive enough to hope that are easiest to scare. They really care. They see terrible, self-inflicted futures ahead and want so badly to stop them. Their fear is the seed from which my patron grows, will grow. You dared to hope, Edwin. Even more so your friends. You saw the fears coming and growing stronger through you. The story of the podcast made it seem so inevitable that you couldn't change your nature and escape the awful fate that you would inflict on yourself and the world. And yet, with a lot of help, it seems you did just that. I embraced the vision of the awful fates coming for humanity. I believed it was an inescapable part of our nature to warp the world so much it kills us all. But you made me doubt. If we believe there's no way out, that we are inherently broken creatures, doomed to bring about the worst possible future, is that embracing a hard truth? Or is it cowardly complicity? Following the path of least resistance, giving up when we still had a choice? Could I have chosen differently? Could I still, or have my actions already sealed my own terrible future? I don't know, Eddie, if you're still there. But I don't think you'll be hearing from me for a long, long time. Statement ends.